Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're taking a deep dive into the world of sustainable transportation. Specifically, we're going to break down the big showdown. Hydrogen fuel cell vehicles versus electric vehicles.
Hippo up.
You know you've been eyeing that next car purchase, and you want it to be green, but which shade of green is right for you? That's what we're going to figure out today.
It's a really interesting debate because both of these technologies, hydrogen and electric vehicles, both kind of promise a future where you never have to pull into a gas station again.
Yeah, it's like a sustainability showdown, right?
Totally.
So, to give you that inside track on which to choose, let's start with what might seem like the newer technology to some people, hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. So imagine this. You pull up to a fueling station, but instead of that gas smell, you're filling up with hydrogen gas.
And here's where the really cool part comes in. Inside that hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, there's this chemical reaction. Hydrogen from the tank meets oxygen from the air, and what you get is not an explosion or a bang. You get this really cool flow of electrons.
Nice.
And that creates the electricity that powers the motor. And what do you have left over? Just water vapor and a little bit of heat.
Okay, so I'm starting to see why people are excited about hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. But for someone like me who is really all about efficiency, like a lot of our listeners, break it down. What are the big advantages?
So first, let's talk about refueling. With hydrogen, it's super fast, like crazy fast. It takes about 5 minutes to fill up the tank, just like the old days with your gasoline car.
Oh, wow. So no more waiting around at the charging station for an hour.
No more long waits. You're back on the road in just a few minutes.
Okay, I like it.
And range anxiety.
Yeah.
Forget about it. Some hydrogen models out there can go for over 300 miles on a single tank of hydrogen.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's some serious long-haul freedom right there.
Yeah, that's true. And then, of course, there's the whole zero emissions thing. I mean, unless you count that water vapor, which, let's be honest, it's not really a problem for the environment.
Mother Nature seems to be okay with a little H2O.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, and you knew there was going to be a but.
There's always a but.
The process of actually making this hydrogen fuel, it's not always so clean, is it?
Yeah, that's the catch for now. Most of the hydrogen that's produced today is actually made from natural gas, which means, unfortunately, there are some carbon emissions involved in the production process.
So not exactly that perfectly green dream just yet, but I've heard this term, green hydrogen. What is green hydrogen?
Green hydrogen is really the holy grail here.
Yeah.
We're talking about hydrogen that's produced using entirely renewable energy sources like wind power, solar power.
Okay.
And they split water into hydrogen and oxygen. So you have a completely clean process from start to finish. No carbon footprint to worry about.
So that sounds like the makings of a truly sustainable fuel, right?
Absolutely.
But how does it stack up against electric vehicles, which everyone seems to be talking about these days as the answer? And speaking of electric vehicles, it seems like they're everywhere now.
Yeah.
I mean, you see everything from those little zippy city cars to those like high-end luxury models.
Totally.
It seems like EVs have really come a long way. It's not just for the early adopters anymore, right?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the biggest change, I think, that we've seen is the progress in battery technology.
Right.
It's incredible. It's gotten to a point where it's made EVs more affordable, they're more efficient, and they're much more practical for just your average everyday driver.
Yeah.
We're talking longer ranges, faster charging times, and just way more choices out there.
Yeah, that's true. It's really impressive how far things have come. But for our listeners who might be new to this whole EV thing, can we just back up for a sec?
Sure.
What is an electric vehicle? What makes it run?
Well, basically, it runs on electricity, but it's stored in a big battery pack, like you would imagine, in your phone.
Yeah.
But way bigger, obviously.
Right.
And instead of going to the gas station, you just plug it in when you need to recharge.
Okay, so where do you even plug it in? I mean, it can't be as easy as like pulling up to a gas station.
Wow. Well, that's been one of the biggest changes that I think we're seeing, is that the infrastructure for EV charging is just exploding. You see them popping up everywhere. Shopping malls, workplaces, rest stops, highways. I mean, they're everywhere.
Oh, wow. That's good to know because range anxiety is definitely a thing. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners are wondering, can you actually go the distance in one of these things?
It's becoming less and less of an issue as that battery technology gets better.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get EVs now that can comfortably go over 250 miles on a single charge.
Wow.
And some models go even further than that.
Really?
And the truth is, most of us aren't driving that far on a daily basis anyway, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, but besides the whole environmental benefit, what are some of the other advantages of an EV? For those of us out there who are all about efficiency, what's the big selling point?
Well, think about this. Electric motors are super efficient.
Hmm.
I'm talking like they can convert over 60% of the energy from the grid into power that actually gets those wheels turning.
Wow. Okay.
If you compare that to like a gasoline engine, which is only about 25%,
Oh, yeah.
it's a huge difference.
Yeah, that is a huge difference.
It's a lot less energy wasted,
Which translates into...
which means lower running costs as well.
Right.
I mean, electricity is generally cheaper than gasoline.
Right.
And you don't have all that maintenance.
Sure.
You don't need oil changes. You don't need spark plugs. There's no exhaust system to worry about. So over time, you're saving a lot of money.
Music to any car owner's ears.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got hydrogen, kind of like the up-and-comer, and then we've got electric vehicles, which are, I don't know, they seem to be winning the popularity contest at the moment.
For sure.
So let's pit them head-to-head in this sustainability showdown. What do our listeners need to think about when they're comparing these two green machines?
I think the big things that people really focus on, especially if they're thinking about their next car purchase, come down to this. Refueling versus recharging. So how long does it take to fill up your car? How far can you go on a single tank or charge? And then, of course, the overall environmental impact.
Okay, so starting with that first one then, refueling or recharging, it seems like hydrogen has a bit of an edge there with that 5-minute fill-up. That's pretty hard to beat.
It is, yeah. That quick refueling time is a huge plus for hydrogen. It's definitely more in line with what people are used to with their gas-powered vehicles.
Yeah. But
There's always a but.
there's always a but. Right now, there just aren't that many hydrogen fueling stations out there. EV charging, on the other hand, that infrastructure is growing super fast.
Right.
But trying to find a place to, fill up your hydrogen car
Right.
could be tricky depending on where you live.
Yeah, that's true. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's faster, but you can't find it.
Yeah,
But the other one's more available, but it takes longer.
exactly.
Okay, what about range? I mean, for those longer road trips, what are we looking at?
Yeah, for those weekend trips, or those cross-country road trips, range is a big deal. I know, I've been there, even with my electric car now. Sometimes I get a little range anxiety.
And that's where hydrogen has a bit of an advantage right now. Like we said, some of those hydrogen models are getting over 300 miles on a single tank,
Wow.
which is,
Wow.
really rivaling gasoline cars.
That's true. But I'm also hearing more and more about all this cool new battery technology coming out for electric vehicles. Could that change? I mean, could EVs eventually catch up to hydrogen or even go beyond what hydrogen can do with range?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's, battery tech is just changing so rapidly. I mean, we're seeing advancements in things like battery density, how much energy you can pack into a smaller space, and efficiency, and all that translates to, more miles that you can go on a single charge.
Okay.
And then there's all this research going on right now with these like alternative battery chemistries, moving beyond lithium-ion batteries,
Right.
which could lead to even more powerful and longer lasting batteries. So I think the range thing is definitely not, not a decided thing at this point.
It's like an ongoing race.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a race to see who can go further.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, but let's talk about what's probably the most important factor for our listeners, which is the environmental impact, right?
Right.
We talked about how important green hydrogen production is, but, when we really look at the whole picture, the entire life cycle of both of these technologies, making them, using them, what happens to them when they die, which one is actually better for the environment?
That's where it gets really interesting and honestly a bit more complex because you have to kind of zoom out and look at the big picture. To really say something's green, you've got to think about everything. What are the energy sources that are being used to produce this stuff? What about all the materials that go into it? What's the manufacturing process like? And even like you said, at the end of its life, how do you get rid of it? Can you recycle it?
So it's not just about what comes out of the tailpipe.
Exactly. There's so much more to this story. So with hydrogen, it really comes down to scaling up that green hydrogen production. If we can move away from using fossil fuels to make hydrogen and really rely on, wind and solar, those renewable energy sources, then you're talking about a fuel source that is truly sustainable.
Okay, that makes sense. So what about electric vehicles? What do we need to consider with them when we're thinking about the environment?
Well, the big one for EVs is the battery. mining the materials, especially lithium, that go into those lithium-ion batteries, and then the whole manufacturing process, all of that does have an environmental impact, unfortunately.
So it's not all perfect then?
Not perfect, no. It's something we need to be really conscious of,
Yeah.
making sure we're getting those materials responsibly, trying to reduce the impact of those mining operations as much as possible.
So really it's about progress, not perfection with electric vehicles.
I think that's a great way to put it. Progress, not perfection. And the good news is that the research that's happening in the battery world right now, that's kind of like their main focus. How do we make batteries more sustainable?
Okay, go.
They're looking at using different materials, less harmful ones. They're figuring out really cool ways to recycle and reuse the components of the batteries. They want to make them last longer. So a lot of exciting things are happening on that front.
Okay, that's good to hear. So it's kind of like a two-pronged approach. You've got the technology itself, but then you've also got to be smart about how you're getting the materials, how you're making them.
Exactly. And that's where I think, governments come in.
Okay.
The policies that they put into place, the investments they make in renewable energy and research and development,
Right.
even just like incentivizing consumers to actually make the switch to these greener options, those are all going to be really important factors in kind of speeding up the transition to a greener transportation system.
So we all need to work together on this, basically. It's not just up to, one person or one company.
It's a team effort, for sure. I don't think it's going to be one or the other, hydrogen or electric. We're probably going to see a mix of both on the roads in the future.
Right.
And they each have their own strengths, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. So maybe hydrogen for like those big long-haul trucks or those heavy-duty vehicles, those ones where they really need that quick refueling and they're going further distances.
Right.
And then electric vehicles, they're probably going to keep doing well for those personal cars, those shorter trips, especially as that battery technology keeps getting better.
It's an exciting time to see it all happening.
Yeah, it really is. We covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. I feel like we've been from like the inner workings of how these fuel cells work to like the quest for the perfect battery.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But for our listeners who are out there thinking about that next car, that big purchase, remember, it's really a personal choice. There's no right or wrong answer. Think about your needs, your driving habits, what's important to you.
Do your research, see what's available in your area, maybe even test drive a few different types of cars, see what you like.
And just get excited about it. I mean, this is like a really cool time to be kind of a part of this big change in how we get around.
It's a transportation revolution.
It really is. Thanks for joining us for this electrifying deep dive, everyone.
See you next time.
And until then, keep those wheels turning sustainably, of course.